I think, coming from the exercise world, we're not really conditioned, we hear about gait, but we're not really conditioned to respect and value it, because I've come to, when people talk about human movement in the gym, so to speak, I hear the words human movement. I think my reference for human movement is gait. I mean, if we want to think about how the body is supposed to function, and it's funny, traditionally we've taken people into the gym and we've done a lot of things, some of the things that you've spoke about in your book, What the Foot. We've done a lot of things that really don't respect human movement for the sake of some type of performance in the gym. So I've really come to value my reference for how I treat a body based on human movement, and my reference is gait. And I've started to look at things like hip extension and pronation actually being the trigger for something like hip extension, which goes right back to your model, which is all about muscles, joints act, muscles react, and muscles shorten from a lengthened position, right? So it's all about going through that whole chain. And if we can't actually pronate the foot, it won't lengthen and widen, then we're not going to be able to actually re-access those supinators. And I think a lot of it comes back to those bony positions that are less than that are less than optimal.
Well, if you critically sit down and pay attention to all of the muscle attachment sites, and the ins and outs of the bony movements in pronation, you will find that 90+% of the muscles in the foot are set up to supinate the foot. Now, we have this complete ideology in the industry that we need to supinate the foot. So go to post-tib, posterior tibialis is a foot supinator. So if you've got a pronated foot, it makes sense. Work the posterior tib. However, we have a real issue in so much as this idea that the bones need to be the structures that do the movement. And so if a muscle is going to contract a foot into a position, the bones need to know what position they're going to get into. So a lot of posterior tib contraction is not actually creating what I would call a foot supination. They're actually just going to create an inversion possibly in the foot. And you'll see that with people lifting tennis balls up, inverting the foot, losing contact with the first and second metatarsals, or wearing a sports trainer that doesn't really facilitate that movement. And so what can we do to give that posterior tib a completely different role? And it comes back to the 3 dimensions. There's a 3-dimensionality to a pronation. And pronation is a culmination of those 3 dimensions and the movements that are happening in every bone. And so the posterior tib is a great example. So it's got all of those attachments. It runs down the back of the tib, hence its name, under the medial part of the forefoot and into the mid-tarsals, attaching onto metatarsals and all the mid-tarsals except for and everything but the bloody talus, basically, which has no muscle attachment. And so if you can imagine sinking a foot down onto that posterior tib, all of those attachments just get spread and lengthened. So as the foot is lengthening, which is a component of pronation, the foot is widening, kind of like this. That's a component of pronation. And there's a torque going through it, which is anything running from back to front is getting this kind of towel stretch talk about. And so in all 3 dimensions, it is being lengthened with the foot pronation.